Hello, all you fantastic cats and kittens out there in YouTube land, and welcome to another stirring and scintillating installment of this Disinformed After Dark. I'm Shane,
And I'm Michael.
and we're back to just your good old fashioned missionary position podcasting with just two people
Just
in
the
a
two
single
of
shot.
us.
All right.
Don't
Glad you
ask any
didn't.
questions
I
on
was
it.
like, no, I'm just glad you didn't go more than 15 seconds because we're not getting a strike here. It's not like we're making money anyway, but in case you are unaware, we are two of the progenitors, in fact, the paterfamilias of
Ooh.
the Disinformed podcast, which we host every wonderful week, and it flees your preferred provider app on Monday mornings. So you can check us out there. We like to talk about random esoterica and lie about it. It is delightful, I assure you. But you don't have to take my word for it. Go download a few episodes, check it out, and see what happens. And this week, we're going to get into something which is, again, a topic du jour of ours in a constant state, it seems. We're going to be talking about our Lord and Savior, Stephen King. And Michael had told me that he recently, as of today,
uh,
a couple
Few
days
days
ago,
ago. Yeah, yeah.
okay,
Not
had
terribly far.
finished one of the greatest of the Stephen King short stories, depending upon who you talk to. I'm certainly in the camp. I will say it's pretty fantastic. I just
Mm-hmm.
finished Children of the Corn from, that's in Night Shift, yes?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. And so take it away, Michael. What are we going to be doing on this glorious little installment here?
Well, I figured I would talk a little bit about it, kind of say what I enjoyed about it, which
Okay.
was everything. Um,
Oh,
but
everything.
and I will touch base on it. And then, so after I told Shane that I read that little passage there, the little short story, I asked him, how on God's green earth could they make 6 movies of this 10-minute read, at most 10-minute read?
I mean, it'd take you a little more than 10 minutes, but
Okay, I guess that's fair. I think
if
I
you
think
really make a meal of it, you know.
Yeah, I think Kindle told me 15. I just assumed that I'm a slow reader, so I kind of nudged a little bit lower to make me feel better. So,
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. No, I again, it's as is all too often the case, as you've seen from having also read another short story that was adapted this year for the Boogeyman. There's it's a pretty bare bones story, but when you start taking into account the fact that you're putting it through a visual medium, you can do a lot to build tension as opposed to showing and not
true.
telling. So there's plenty that you can do cinematically to sort of expand some of these things. But yes, as a germ of a concept, as a kernel, I don't know how they've gotten so many subsequent runs, but it's kind of the same principle as the Hellbound Heart expanding into the Hellraiser series. There's a
Mhm.
significant degree of how many minutes are we in here? There's a certain degree of bastardization that occurs over the
Ah,
course of, corrupting and adjusting and then extrapolating. And as we got to the couple of the most recent, probably I think the seventh Hellraiser Deader, as an example, they didn't. They basically just wanted to keep the rights to the property, so they flew over a script that they had for an entirely different concept, and then just sort of sprinkled in some Hellraiser elements to make it a Hellraiser film, and it shows. Like
oh man.
there's so little of the plot that is really sort of intrinsically linked to the concept as created by Clive Barker. So I imagine that that is very likely the case with a bunch of the Children of the Corn iterations, because much like the oh no, it's just slipped my mind. Is
Oh,
it
gasp.
the Lord of the Flies, the
Ah.
Golding book that preceded it? That was more about the concept of civilization kind of collapsing on
Mhm.
itself, to me, whereas like Children of the Corn is more about zealotry.
Yeah,
At
I
least,
would.
as I've looked at it, that
Mhm.
is more of kind of the circumstances of this is what happens when you allow sort of lore to take over your mental processes, or as you see in the reality of that there is in fact a beast to be fed. So we're in
Mhm.
the King Kong principle or other things like this. So it's an interesting conception of seeing then how society can break and reform itself in this new hierarchical structure, particularly where the children are the ones who are more more willing to sort of lose their familiarity with the old ways and sort of train themselves into a new frame of life and a new structure. So interesting concept. But as you've mentioned, that we've now had a complete remake of the original film, which then came out this year. So semi-topical, and I'd completely forgotten that they made a remake as well.
Same. I honestly, I remember when I was getting close to, when you told me Children of the Corn was in Night Shift, I had just started reading Night Shift, and that was when Children of the Corn came out earlier this year, and I was like, okay, it'll be cool to read the book and then go see the movie, and then I promptly forgot about the movie and that it existed entirely. So, yeah, will I see it? Probably not, but especially now that I got a challenge, like as reference from this week's podcast, where I have to watch Renfield, or you have to come up with some sort of punishment. So
I've already said you're not going to be allowed to eat green chili anymore.
Oh no, that's
no more green chili.
Geez.
That is it. Yes, the gauntlet's thrown down. I want to incentivize you with something that you will regret. But, well, we'll see whether or not you feel enticed to see either of these iterations of Children of the Corn once we do the screening here. So we'll get ready for our glorious little reaction video here. So if you are ready, I'm almost ready. Here is Children of the Corn from the 1984 installment, and we're going to see a few famous faces here.
Ooh.
And I'm ready to roll whenever you is. Are you good?
Yep, let's do it.
Here it comes.
Every child is afraid of the dark. The nightmare. In Gatlin, Nebraska, that nightmare is in the corn.
I mean, they've made some glittering generalities here. Oh, no!
Okay.
It's the kid who came with the frame from The Burbs. And was also in Can't Buy Me Love, a film I absolutely enjoyed, but...
Okay,
yes, a young Linda Hamilton, okay, yep.
From Stephen King, the author of Carrie, The Shining, The Dead Zone, and Christine, an adult nightmare. Children of the Corn.
I can't tell you how many times I've said that in the Heights of Passion.
Yeah, Lord.
Stephen
Okay.
King, Children of the Corn.
It looks like it kind of follows the story. I did see some key moments in there. So, all right. Oh, and he wrote the screenplay.
Oh, well. Well, with a little help from George Goldsmith, which is never a bad call. But, okay. I will say that I have a weird set of experiences with the King cinematic universe, in that I have difficulties with how people interpret, and even some of King himself having a little take on his own classic material. The results can vary, as we've learned. It's a difficult perspective to try to make movies these days. But all right, well, let's see if we feel any less corny or any less sluggish about the most modern. I will say, like, this seems to be the new move these days, since they've also just remade Firestarter, which I've seen neither of those, which I'm a bad cinema fan, I know. But just never felt compelled, and my folks don't like horror generally, so particularly things made in the 80s, I was not allowed to see. I had to go seek them out in my adult years when I was able to rent them as you know, over the age of 18. So, okay, let's see what we get from the new trailer.
Prepare to witness the horrific rise of the next generation of evil.
I feel like I've seen this before. No, I heard this before, sorry.
Based on the short story.
Wait, so they just took the same guy? The same audio clip?
It sounds like the voiceover is very similar.
Comes the nightmare. Like you've never seen it before.
The prior 6 times.
I know, it sucks. It's so hard sometimes you can hardly breathe.
Oh,
But I
is
can
this
help.
from
Your
their
pain.
perspective.
Brace yourself. He who walks. He talked to me. He took care of me. So
Oh.
now I'm going to take care of him.
Like killing all the adults.
For starters.
Okay.
As an origin
prequel.
story,
Yeah.
that's intriguing.
All right.
He who walks! Come! This is our world now!
Oh, and you saw the thing that I was referencing in Doctor Who. Yes.
Haha,
Yeah, the empty child.
indeed.
Mhm.
Hey, a gas mask is a creepy visual. I agree.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Of the corn.
Now I will say I will be incredibly. Ooh. Okay.
Now, the tagline for the film should be "He who walks comes," because I feel
Yes.
like you definitely ensnare some form of the audience there,
Ooh, probably
mostly
not.
in the goo. But yes, I'm sorry. Anyway,
But I would be impressed if this, I guess, prequel, origin story, what
Mhm.
have you, the beginning of the Children of the Corn cinematic universe, as we all know will happen. It'll be great if it ends right at the beginning of where the book will take place.
Mhm.
But that's also assuming too much, though. I think it is on Shudder.
Yes.
So I might be correct in that, but who knows?
You know, there's also something that is great to be said about King himself is actually very liberal with allowing folks to make filmic versions of his work.
True.
It's a famous sort of tale out of school, essentially, that he would allow people to option his stuff for $1.
Mm-hmm.
If they were interested. Just, I mean, from a sheer proliferation of material there, when you've got at the present over 80 works, and a lot of those, I mean, there's at least 8 or 9 that are collections of short stories. It's plenty of material to pull from.
Oh yeah.
But no, it's a really cool concept, and great of him to allow people to sort of go play in his sandbox and take his toys for a bit.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes he'll even tell them how they work.
Uh-huh. And
So-
write them himself.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't mean to throw any slander. There's some interesting. It's always we routinely joke that Maximum Overdrive did not do him any favors for showing him as a cinematic auteur. But this happens a lot. As for instance, William Peter Blatty wound up directing Exorcist 3 because he did not appreciate some of the way William Friedkin dealt with the original material for The Exorcist, in spite of the fact he was involved. And then, of course, it's based on his sequel book, Legion, which really cool concept. The movie itself is not horrendous. It's actually pretty entertaining. But I really liked the book. Very fun concept. I have that as kind of written up with another one of my favorite, the What the Night Knows, the Kuntz book that I talked about recently.
Okay.
There's some sort of ties there with a body hopping killer, essentially. So it's with
okay.
that though, it's the explanation in Legion as a fun little hook is that they explain the Zodiac killer that way. No, for them, it's they have a different name for it. I'm forgetting. I think it's not like the Dirty Harry where it's the Scorpio killer, but it's something else where it's relative to it's the Gemini or something like this. But it is essentially explaining the reason they never caught the Zodiac killer is because it is the demon Pazuzu that is just jumping from body to body, and the detective Kinderman is still trying to track the trail of this killer and discover this. And so, the really fun concept, really excellently executed as a book as well. I enjoyed it immensely. So for all those people who are like huge Exorcist fans, the book is fantastic, and of course Exorcist 3 does execute that with Blatty directing. It's not bad. Not phenomenal, certainly, but it tries at least.
And that's all you could ever ask for.
Yes. Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. So it's a good way to run. Now, here's a question, just because I love going off on these tangents. Given your druthers, if you had an opportunity to direct a King short story or book, is there something you would try to tackle?
Ooh. Well, my immediate first reaction was The Stand, but I can barely keep attention on one thing, so I don't think I would be able to do all the characters and give them justice. You know, since I am a neuro-spicy individual.
Yes, that's a good phrase.
But I think, oh no, and I lost it. Oh no.
It's okay.
It was,
I can
vamp.
So
stretch.
As we've talked about through, there's.
I got it back. Since we talked about
don't work with animals, children,
or the neurospicy,
perpetually neurospicy.
11/20/63.
Okay, I was gonna say that easily it was like the first impulse that I had, but obviously my first impulse would be to go away from things that have already been done. Because yes, it's easy to till over ground, but naturally, my favorite King book of the moment would be the one I would go for, and we've talked about it before. I'd absolutely love a shot at Revival, since that is what I feel like is essentially my autobiography. I look forward to my Lovecraft years. Spoilers, sorry. As we saw in my write-up for work when I was doing that as a recommendation, I was like, how do I do this without totally spoiling the end of the book? Because that's part of the joy, is stumbling into that nightmare without knowing what was happening. Such a cool concept, and I feel like you could do that brilliantly cinematically speaking. That's why I was really excited when Flanagan was talking about doing it. And so if that has lapsed, and it is not going to happen, apparently, that has fallen out of the run. But
man, you got me excited and then immediately took it away.
Hey, door's still open for me to have an opportunity, though. So
that's fair. I bet he'll sell it for $1.
I'll do a quick call, because I'm happy to collaborate on a script if you're so inclined, my dear friend, Mr.
Oh
King.
man, please. I know he watches this, so
naturally. You're a mean one, Mr. King. You're full of sinful scares. All right, that's enough. We'll get sued all over the place. You're singing, I'm singing. What the hell's happening here?
And I'm already now fantasizing about how you would write the Revival, and I don't want to get into it because otherwise we'll be here all night just talking about all the different things that you can explore. Just the effects, the tension.
The most important element, though, I feel like, if I have to audition for my services, if I have to sing for my supper, pun intended, I do in fact know how to play a bar E. So just bear that in mind, Stephen. All right.
Ooh.
Well, thank you all for being here as per usual. And if you have a favorite adapted King cinematic work, please, let us know in the comments, because we would love to hear from you. And if you have any other input that you can give us, Michael has got some advice for you.
Smash that like button, ring the bell, hit subscribe, set phasers to engage, and leave a comment.
Please do. Tell us what we're doing wrong. See if you would like to see what I would do with Revival, in fact. Or, what are your favorites that you've seen previously? What are the things that you feel like went way too far off the rails? Were you a fan of The Night Flyer, for instance? Or any of the other weird adaptations? Oh, yeah, I'm not sure you've encountered that one yet, friend.
No, but I'm thinking of, what was it? It was from one of his more recent short story collections. It was Mr. Something's Phone or something like that.
Mr. Harrigan's Phone.
Mr. Harrigan's Phone, yes, which I did see.
What did you think, since we're on the topic?
It was another one of those movies where I was like, it didn't really need to be as long as it was, but like it was good. I feel like the twist at the end wasn't as intense as the story was, but
the funny thing about that is I feel like, and we can talk about this, is like cinema criticism of one of the things that I have a problem with when they started adapting material. They wanted to inject a sense of malice there with him.
Yes.
For him being Mr. Harrigan, where he seemed ominous, and they made it feel like he had this power to him, which technically he did. And in the story, they do say is he wasn't a person to be trifled with, like, obviously.
Mhm.
And so when that starts to play out in the course of the story, I feel that happens more organically in the short story than it
Yes.
does. It is the Shining effect. Which,
I was thinking the exact same
exactly.
thing.
Where it's
Yes.
like, if you
Okay.
make Jack Torrance a psychopath from the moment he's on screen, it's a coiled spring. It has that Hitchcock principle of, okay, when is this bomb going to explode? But at the
Mhm.
same time, what King wants is to have that full sort of spectral arc of character starts here, character gets here, character ends here. Like,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
have this adaptation that occurs where people can move around. And when you have the kindly old man who has that, and he's not kindly, the curmudgeonly old man who develops an affinity for a young boy, which is a real it's a focal point of Fairy Tale as well, which
Okay.
I really
Okay. Fair.
appreciated, because again, as a curmudgeonly individual myself, I would like to think that no one reached out to talk to me before, but it would be nice to imagine how these confluence of events bring people together, how it can bind them, fuse them, and the refiner's fire can mold relationships. It's pretty fantastic. So there are excellent ways to do that, and then I feel like sometimes you show your hand a little too much by just leaning into it, and some concepts are
Mhm.
really great for that. Others, you have to have a little more of a deft touch. I feel like the cinematic edition of Hearts in Atlantis with the Anthony Hopkins character did that a little bit better.
Okay.
They do make him, because the Ted Brodigan as presented to us in that has this undercurrent of danger that's there, but it's more of a fascination. He's intriguing as opposed to looking at him and having the angry
Yeah.
Punamon the whole time. Because
Yeah.
Hopkins is actually very genteel and very loving, and there's affection there. But then when you start to see the undercurrent kind of bumble up there, as we learn, it's such a cool. It's weird that they did that independently, and then kind of hint at what he did, and have the Dark Tower illusions, but don't explain any of it. So it's just like, yeah, he's a weird guy. He can see things and do things. It's just so funny how these little fireworks pop off in the grand scheme of the full display. But anyway, I will also do this all evening if you allow me to, but I get way too fascinated with the concept.
Mhm.
But okay, well, I look forward to seeing your time travel movie, my friend.
Same. Though when you mentioned revival, I immediately scrapped that, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a way better idea."
Okay,
but
well,
I'll briefly.
hey, we
I
can.
would. Okay, you know what? Yeah, let's do that another time. Is that
Well,
what you were about to say?
No, I was going to say we can collab on a revival script and run
Ooh,
that direction.
yes,
But
I would like that. It would be cool because then you can start bringing in some old timey scientific equipment like some Van de Graaff generators, kind of make them almost like a Tesla, but like how people portray Tesla, not necessarily how he actually it was in real life.
Tesla as presented. Tesla actually a character in one of the most recent Doctor Who seasons as well.
Because why? Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
He's in everything. If there's anything from that era, he is there.
Yes.
Like I think he was in like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
I really loved how
he's-
he is presented in The Prestige, which back on the Christopher Nolan
he
kick
was
again.
in there, yes, yeah.
David Bowie as Tesla was so fantastic. Really cool casting.
Thinking, the game Order 1888. I think he was also in it. Pretty much anything from that era, like the dawn of electricity. I feel like there's some sort of requirement that Tesla has to make an appearance somehow.
Typically.
So,
A very, it's a divisive character, as it were. A lot of people curious about what happens. And a lot of very interesting perspectives on Edison come up in the course of that conversation as well.
Yeah. Though I feel like I don't see him. He's mostly just like as a foil or some sort of way of conflict for Tesla. If he is in it at all.
Well, it definitely is in the Doctor Who episode, which would be interesting for you to see. So I know you haven't moved forward with much of the Jodie iteration, but still.
Oh, I haven't seen any Jodie. I guess technically I stopped after the first season of Capaldi. That's how far behind I am.
Okay. Well, I mean, you also haven't seen the end of the original phases of Marvel either, so I'm not shocked. But it's what it is.
I live in the past, which is where I'm going to go Oh,
Hey,
that would have been a
time
perfect
travel, very appropriate. Yes, we can definitely have a chat about how to do 11/22/63 better because that's still one of my favorites, and I love that era. I love the 50s into the 60s. I have a real attachment to it, which is why Mad Men is something that I adore, and I know you like it purely from a musical perspective.
Man, that
But
theme song. Oh,
I
so good.
yes, RJD2 and QXRLNE. But
Mhm.
okay, I think we've overstayed our welcome long enough here for our purposes here on YouTube. But thank you all for being here as per usual. If you want to explore more of our neurospicy content, you will find a link in the show notes below. It'll take you to anything that you might want to peruse. It'll be an awful lot of fun. So keep coming back. We'll see you every fantastic Friday here on YouTube. New episodes of the podcast winging your way every lovely Monday morning, wherever your podcasts are provided. And so for Disinformed After Dark, this week, a happy Doc Day to all of you out there who are celebrating. And I am, in fact, Kenton Eldorado.
And I am Robert Greer.
And
Oh,
I hope you have a Baja Blast.
yes. And zippity zoop, we're out of here.